Hi everyone, Tony Tonkin here from Things That Matter. Glad that you could be with me today. Look, and I do apologise to the thousands of people that check in just to find out what's happening in my world, only discover that there's not very much because for a whole week I haven't been able to make a live feed. Now, those of you that do watch my channel, the two of you that do, and I'm so grateful, I just want you to know that things have been really, really busy. Avery from time to time hasn't been available to have that chat, so I'm having that chat with you, and I'm gonna discuss about the this incredible and indistinguishable universe that we're supposed to be living in, and I don't understand what in the hell's going on. Hence the reason why I have this backdrop at the moment, just to remind us that this is the type of universe that I have no friggin' idea about. Even though I must confess, I did watch something on cosmology yesterday that I found interesting about how if we were able to travel at the speed, almost the speed of light, how things would change after 20 years when you return to Earth, which would be hundreds of Earth years. And I found that fascinating. That was a part of the universe I did not know about, and part of a universe which I'm still confused about, but at least I gathered some information about it. But the universe I want to talk about today is the political universe. Now, I want to have a look at both the political universe in Australia and particularly the one that fascinates me the most is the political universe in the United States, primarily because the universe in the United States is one which eventually may encapsulate us. And so it is about how people can make decisions, reasonable people can make decisions about how they want their world to be interpreted that best fits with their desire for power and control. Now, from a micro level, I often see this when working with people around domestic violence, where one person decides to control another, that their opinions, their decisions and everything are always right, everybody else is always wrong. And part of the work that we do around that, or I do as a social worker, is to help that person understand that there's always another perspective, and that other perspective or the way you're behaving may very well harm another person. And if you care about that person, then perhaps you may choose to modify your behavior so that that other person feels a little bit more comfortable about their world. Now, I think that that's quite a reasonable way to approach most situations. If we are empathetic towards another person, then perhaps our relationship with that person will improve, right? So I kind of see the way we look at politics, or the way we should look at things politically, from this micro view. That is the way I would work with somebody about conflict. Now, what I find really interesting is that on a political sense, both here in Australia and in the US, they don't give a rat's ass about what anybody else thinks, and that they must construct their version of the world to fit with what they believe will give them the most power, control and influence. And it doesn't matter. I don't think it matters what other people think, or it doesn't matter who you're impacting, providing you yourself have this power, control and influence, then that's all that really matters. No one cares about anything else. So what I'm having a look at today is about some media responses to what's happening in the US and how we in Australia are looking at this particular issue, and the media in particular. And I guess what I'd like to do I was going to say years, but in the future is to work out whether or not the way that Americans view politics and the influence that it has on their lives will somehow seed itself in the way we here in Australia managing our politics. And my fear is that it will. So there will probably come a time when we will be just as ignorant, just as inane, just as stupefying as is what we experience in the US right at this particular moment. So, in order to us to investigate that, I've got a clip from Media Watch, which I think is really, really interesting and which I like because it tells us a little bit about how the right here in Australia is perceiving the media situation in the United States. And I've offered this criticism before on this channel, as the one or two of you might have recognised. And I think that this explains it far better than what I would ever be able to explain it. And if I need to stop along the way, I will. Here it is.
Time is running out for the presidential pantomime because on 14th of December, the Electoral College will cast its votes. And the key battleground states, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin and Arizona, have already certified Biden as the winner. What's more than 30 of Trump's legal cases have now been defeated or withdrawn. So, are any of Trump's sycophantic media supporters...
Now, I just want to make the point that this is a week old. This is about a week old now. Not all that old, really. Maybe about 5-6 days old. And already in that time, there have been 46 court cases that have been dismissed. And we know that as of yesterday, US time, the Electoral College has now voted and Biden is the president-elect. So those details have changed in what is a very short period of time. And it just goes to show, I think, how fast this is rolling out. But here we go again.
In Australia, still claiming he's won. Answer, yes. And they're all on Fox's sister network, Sky News.
You won't hear it on the mainstream media, but the simple reality is that the odds of Trump ultimately being declared the winner of this election is no different to what the odds were of George Pell ultimately being found innocent.
In other words, a Trump victory is a certainty, according to Rowan Dean, whose prediction came a day after a crucial legal defeat for Trump in Pennsylvania, and a day before Michigan certified a Biden win, thus removing two of the president's last hopes. Yet Dean was deterred by none of this, telling viewers...
Think very carefully before you write Trump off. I was here in the Sky studio on election day. We all saw the numbers and Trump was way, way ahead. Graham Richardson even called it for Trump mid-afternoon. Later that night, weird things started happening. Like, in no other election I've ever seen, polling booths inexplicably and simultaneously being shut down, boxes of ballots mysteriously appearing out of the back of Porsches, and we all woke up to find Joe Biden being declared the clear-cut winner. Except it's still not all that cut and dry.
It was crazy stuff, and it soon got crazier, with Dean promoting a conspiracy theory involving dead dictator Hugo Chavez and voting machines that were secretly programmed to record votes for Donald as votes for Joe. 4 days later, Sky's other leading Trumper, Alan Jones, developed the dictator theme by pitching this opening question to another Trump supporter.
David Flynn, thank you for your time.
Now my issue here is, I think that these three guys that we're about to see, these two guys, Alan Jones and his mate, and the guy before him, whose name I keep forgetting, are relatively intelligent human beings, I would suggest. However, I do now have my doubts because they do spread these conspiracy theories. So the issue here is that no matter what the truth is, somewhere along the line, these guys are going to believe the falsity that is spread through conspiracy theories. So even though we have now 56 cases, including the Supreme Court, who have denied these claims or said that you just don't have enough evidence to be able to offer a case in relation to any of these allegations, even though everybody else, everyone in authority, including the judicial system, is saying, no, stand back, this is not going to happen, you don't have a case, they are still pushing the same old conspiracy theories. It's like there was a film, I don't know whether they show it here, but there's a film of these people taking these, not suitcases, but boxes out from underneath tables. And that particular film, which was part of the conspiracy theory that they were full of these envelopes, these unsealed envelopes that were in favour of Biden somehow. They did their due diligence around all of that, and it was revealed that the processes that took place that were in that video were just part of the normal processes when it came to sorting and counting votes, that nothing untoward was happening. And that was from the people that were running the show and also witnesses who also watched what was happening. Regardless of all of that evidence, somehow these conspiracy theories must be held on to, because I wonder, if you cancel these conspiracy theories, what are you left with? You know, in the past, you used to be left with just truth, which in this case is a victory to Joe Biden, and then you get on with your life. Just like 4 years ago, it was a victory for Donald Trump, and Hillary Clinton just had to get on with her life, and so did the Democrats. They may not have liked it, in fact they didn't, but they got on. There were no building of conspiracy theories to say that Donald Trump somehow had stole the election. But the right wing tend to want to hold on to these myths, that no matter what happens, they are the most important beliefs that they must have, and that those beliefs must be those that they must uphold, stick to, do not deviate from in any way.
You make reference to Churchill following Dunkirk, leading the British in refusing to deal with Hitler. Why should Trump surrender and ignore his rights under the Constitution?
Comparing Trump to Churchill and Biden to Hitler is a seriously strange comparison. But that aside, why would Sky not accept an election result in which Biden won with 80 million votes? Professor Flint's answer, aping Trump, fraud on an industrial scale.
It's not just fraud, and the fraud is self-evident. It would be self-evident to a rookie journalist. I can't understand why journalists are throwing around the word unsubstantiated.
Well, 4 days earlier, a staunch Republican judge, Matthew Brown, had come to precisely that conclusion in Pennsylvania in throwing out Trump's attempt to invalidate almost 7 million votes, telling the court,
"One might expect that when seeking such a startling outcome, a plaintiff would come formidably armed with compelling legal arguments and factual proof of rampant corruption. Instead, this court has been presented with strained legal arguments without merit and speculative accusations unpled in the operative complaint and unsupported by evidence."
And he had added,
"In the United States of America, this cannot justify the disenfranchisement of a single voter, let alone all the voters of its sixth most populated state."
Yet, in spite of that and all the other defeats, David Flint assured Alan Jones,
There's a lot going for President Trump. He has a very good chance, provided that people are courageous, they don't surrender, and they do their duty, particularly the judges.
Good on you. Good to talk to you, David. There you are, Professor David Flint. We'll keep you up to date, saying things as they are rather than as some would like them to be.
And Jones is not giving up. 2 days earlier, he had insisted there was a mass of evidence that just couldn't be revealed.
And of course, the argument is there's no evidence. Well, the Trump team have evidence, but even if they presented it, it wouldn't be reported. And many of the affidavits can't be presented publicly because people are afraid of being threatened by left-wing extremists.
And last week, Alan upped the ante again with this generous offer.
I will contribute money to charity if anyone can tell me how a bloke who rarely appeared in the campaign, Joe Biden, could possibly, honestly, muster 80 million votes. That's 25% of every man, woman and child in America. Give me a break.
Well, let me tell you, Alan, there was an election, and that was the result. And just about everyone except Donald Trump, Alan Jones and Rowan Dean, who was yesterday claiming fraud again, accept that. For example, before he was fired, Trump's election security chief, Chris Krebs, declared the poll was not rigged and was the most secure in US history. Then last week, another Trump loyalist, Attorney General William Barr, declared there was no evidence of widespread election fraud. And last month, election officials across the USA swore there was no evidence of voter fraud to the New York Times. So, what fantasy land do Alan Jones and Rowan Dean live in that they can just ignore all that? And why does Sky News allow them to keep spouting their nonsense? The answer? Sky News boss Paul Whitaker says it's about diversity. As he told News Corp staff last week,
"We run opinion-based news programming that often shines a light on areas that our competitors either refuse to discuss or, worse, pretend don't exist. This is our brand value proposition that separates us from the dominance of voices on the left of Australian media."
Yep, Sky's brand value proposition goes gangbusters on social media and makes money for the network. It's called Unreality TV. It can be very lucrative. And finally, to the word, or should we say word?
I just love all that it's unreality TV, and that for whatever reason they believe that it's justifiable broadcasting. I think Fox, Alan Jones, all the other people that he has, Flint and the others that he has on the show, they ought to be ashamed of themselves that they're peddling conspiracy theories that are profoundly untrue, and that no one, really, no one, except the people on the far right, want to believe. The question for me, as we rattle our way through this universe, is why is it that we want to believe it in the first place? And I guess there must be something about it that forms our psyche that says, I will not accept an alternative. And if the alternative is having someone that you've been pitching for and batting for, and that if that person loses, then it is unacceptable, and that you must find every excuse under the sun to try and justify not the fact that they lost, but the fact that they probably won. And it was really interesting listening to Donald Trump today talking about how he won the election. So the man is, so the man sank his own ship, actually, because he was telling people that they should not send in their mail ballots. They should not mail their ballots in, that they should actually just vote on the day. As a result, because of the coronavirus, most people thought, well, I won't go and vote on the day, it's too risky, so I'll mail my votes in. Most of the people that did that, of course, were Democrats. And some of the states who said that you can't start counting votes until voting closes, were left with millions and millions of these mail-in ballots, which obviously weren't going to be counted until later in the night. So when there's a dump, as they call it, and the dump is just one big crap by Donald Trump, the reality is that when that dump comes in at 11, 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, or wherever it is, it's a lot of votes. And most of those votes were for Biden, because they, the Democrats, were suggesting that people vote by mail. Now, the other thing that I think is quite interesting is that this is the most people, 155 million, whatever it is, that have ever voted in an election. That tells us two things. Number one is that the people were motivated to vote. That whichever other side it was, they wanted to get out there and vote, and mail-in voting certainly made it easier. The second thing is that a lot of people didn't want Trump. A lot of people, 7 million people more, the highest number ever, decided that they didn't want Trump. And that is the key. The key is not only did Trump lose, Trump lost by a lot more than anyone else has ever lost an election. So this was a moment where people were not only saying, I can't deal with this is too much, we must make up excuses. This was a moment in which the reality hit. This man is not liked by the majority of people in his country, that they see him for what he is. And it really interests me that even though the population see him for the moron that he is, that there are still many people who don't. As a result of that, we're now seeing fighting happening in the streets, and that if this was to come to a place whereby the vote was stolen from Biden, it would be a revolution. And there would be more than just a few stabbings in the street. There would be gunfights. Who knows what would be happening. It would be terrible. And the fact that the politicians don't seem to care, really don't care, I find extremely disturbing. And I'm hoping, upon hope, that this will not manifest itself here in Australia. I really do. You know, we've done so well around the coronavirus to the point, in fact, we don't even need to get the vaccine as early as other countries do because we're down to zero community transmissions. So, but we are fortunate to live in this country because we live under a system which could never, even though ironically, even though the head of government, I guess, ultimately is a monarchy, but under the Westminster system, we don't have a president. We don't have that person sitting at the top. Most decisions are made by a cabinet, a group of people who are politicians. They're not paid investors with financial investments in the roles that they take. They are politicians. So, and the decisions are different, and the way decisions are made in this country are far different. And the way we vote is different because we have Australian Electoral Commission nationally, and we have Australian Electoral Commissions in each state to manage each state election. But nationally, we are controlled by the one body. So our system clearly is far better than theirs. But when we have the likes of Alan Jones and others propagating these conspiracy theories, I do wonder, and the influence that they have on their viewers, who for some particular reason are the most vulnerable of all viewers, and they start to peddle some of these conspiracy theories, which they're just as likely to do at the next election. Heaven help us. Heaven help us. I believe that people like that, and that people like the ABC and independent news organisations like The Guardian and Crikey and others, need to make a stand, a strong stand, and need to be supported by us. Because at the end of the day, people like Fox News, Murdoch's, will try and control the way we think and behave around elections, and will start spreading conspiracy theories that are likely to topple governments and destroy our democracy. So I'm still confused about what it is that is happening, but I hope it isn't what I think may happen. Thanks everybody for watching, and looking forward to seeing you next time on Things That Matter.